Yeah, I would just get without you.
Agreed.
Gonna grab it.
Can't be helped at this point.
Is this the browser? Brad? This is the browser.
Just have to have that table for.
Okay.
Oh, well. This was a learning. Always been taught.
Okay, so video is good. Where's my mute? Where's my mute? Where's my mute? There's my, I'm muted. I am muted. Okay.
Come on, Michael. Yes, I did. Why? Because I don't use it. Loud enough. No extremely soft speaker. I can be loud when I want to be. It's like slide out the cube. You're not tall enough to hide behind.
Me?
Yeah,
Tell me to,
there you go.
you can lower your seat and I can raise
There you
mine,
go.
right?
It's tied out, yeah.
Angela looks like wrestling's going well.
I know.
She just had like a side out dryer and she had.
Remember they're hot. Yes.
There you go.
Plus, she's doing really well.
I know, plus she's doing good.
2 minutes.
It's kind of tough.
Yeah.
Did you learn the cement mixer yet?
I have no idea. I went to Stapleton and my friends go to school there. Her daughter's been wrestling for years. And so she was like, oh, Sarah's got a really great double under. And I was like, thanks. Oh, yeah. And they don't know what that means. But yeah, she told me. I'm like,
I'm glad you're here.
and then she didn't, now that I know what that move is, she didn't do it the
Oh.
whole.
I don't know who did.
So I was
I
like,
owe
oh.
someone.
I just noticed that the coach.
I bet it was Carrie.
Coaches a lot of cement mixers, so I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
If the girl's cement mixer or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to ask her.
Great many combination, you get it.
There you go.
I just,
1 minute.
I don't walk very often. I would have forgotten that I stayed walking in here.
Yeah.
I just.
These don't have scoring. Scoring is. You can take that as we should install with what you call for scoring. Do 3 back and then over the back. That's not shoulders, shoulder blades. Shoulders and birds.
So you can get like, they're like per second, you get a point like on it. If you get them on the back.
Get them on the back and get them, sort of over towards the back. King cows too. We don't get past. So. It's like my head, it's not very good.
Time.
good evening. Welcome to our December meeting of the North Platte Public Schools Board of Education. Roll call, Sheila.
Mark Nicholson,
Present.
Matthew Peterson,
Present.
Skip Altick,
Present.
Joanne Lundgren,
Present.
Ivan Mitchell,
Present.
Angela Blazy.
Here.
The purpose of the North Platte Public Schools District is to prepare all students to be productive, responsible citizens in a safe, caring, and supportive learning environment. Our direction is to prepare every student for success through high-quality educational programs delivered by highly effective educators who use innovative research-based strategies in a safe, supportive environment in collaboration with family, businesses, and community members. The Nebraska Opens Meeting Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is in the boardroom, I assume, here.
Oh, shoot.
If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, we have our special presentations. Mr. Spatansky.
Would like to recognize this November's Bulldog of the Month. We have two selections this month. We have Grady Sexton and McKenna Snyder. So I'll go ahead and invite McKenna up here first. And Grady's the second in his family to be recognized. We'll have a chance to meet his family again on behalf of the high school. We'll present our awards at the end. So McKenna.
Hi. My name is McKenna Snyder. I'm a senior at North Platte High School. With me today, I have my mom, Melissa Snyder, my stepdad, Justin Vieira, and then my younger brother, Alicio Vieira. I have been at North Platte High School since my freshman year. Throughout my high school career, I have participated in student council all 4 years of high school. My senior year, so this year, I am the president of the student council. I am also an active member of Key Club for the past 3 years, and I was also initiated into the National Honor Society last year for my junior year. I'm a pretty active member along with Grady. I know Grady and I do a lot of work together. We're both in student council and Key Club together, so and National Honor Society. So that's pretty cool. If I had to pick my favorite high school experience, I know it's pretty hard. I would say anything that is involving the student council. I love what I do and I love the group. It's just amazing what we do and everything that we partake in. So yeah, and then my plans for after graduation is I plan on attending the University of Kearney, where I plan on getting my bachelor's degree in elementary education. Thank you.
I was prepared, I guess. All right. All right. My name is Grady Sexton. I'm here today with my mom, Mandy, my dad, Tyler, my stepmom, Colleen, and my grandparents. Just a few things that I've been a part of. The past 3.5 years, I've been part of Key Club, which I have held a presidential position from sophomore year till now. I also have held in a position alongside McKenna in student council. This year, I've been fortunate enough to become secretary, and it's a lot of work, but it pays off and it's a lot of fun. The last club that I'm in is National Honor Society. I joined last year as a junior and have dedicated over 25 hours of community service since then. I also participate in the unified bowling team. Personally, I really enjoy bowling with the unified kids that they have at the high school. They love being a part of it, and being there with them just makes their day. And also, I love to bowl. So I hate to piggyback off McKenna, but one of my favorite high school experiences is probably the canned food drive we do for student council. If you don't know about it, it's kind of just a thing that we put on in November. It brings in a lot of cans, a lot of money in for the school, so and some local food pantries. And my high school plans after graduation for college would probably be I'm going hopefully attend the University of Nebraska at Omaha for computer engineering. Thank you.
Yeah.
How are you? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all new to us this time around.
Get some pictures here. Get that.
Yeah.
Right in front. Yeah. That's funny. That's great. Shoot. I don't want to get going into it, so. Great. Mike. Oh, look, there's. That's a good spot. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next up is our foundation report. Terry?
Good evening, Dr. Rhodes and Board of Education. The Foundation Board wanted to thank Mr. Mark Nicholson and Mr. Ivan Mitchell for their service on the board. We know this is your last meeting, so thank you for your service. The Foundation's been busy doing Reaching One Classroom at a Time. If you haven't seen the social media post or watched KNOP, it's a collaboration with Wilkinson Companies or Fat Dogs and the Foundation. The KNOP follows us around each week, and we go in and we're able to surprise a teacher in a classroom each week. We've had over $16,000 in requests, and we started a little over 4 weeks ago. We'll be running this through May 1st. Of course, we are going to take about a 3-week short break during Christmas, so we'll be back on January 11th, but we will be out next week, so stay tuned for that. Teachers applied online. We have a committee that involves Mrs. Carlson and Mrs. Douglas, along with some Foundation Board members to determine the awardees. We've granted over $2,000 in the last 4 weeks. I wanted you to see just a few awardees. The library students will be adding a heat press to their Cricut, and they'll be able to make some buttons and shirts, and the students are able to use their creativity and design them. And then Mrs. Altig at Madison received some funds for some standing desks to add some alternative seating in her classroom. And Miss Berg at Lincoln has implemented a coffee cart that will travel around Lincoln once a week. The students will greet the teachers during breakfast time, obtain their order using an order form, gather the order, and deliver the order. They will also learn to count back change. The students participating in this will be 2 to 4 special education students paired with 2 to 4 general education peers. And then, of course, our last one, which was actually our first one, was Mr. Willie at the high school, who was able to order some wireless mics he was able to use when they interviewed the governor for the South Platte Water documentary that he's completing for his fellowship over 18 weeks. And this will impact over 80 students through the 2 video production classes that he has. The committee has been enjoying seeing all these applications come through. Again, we'll continue this through May 1st. Watch KNOP Thursdays at 6 to see who this week's recipient is. And then can I go into recognition? We also have recognition of district employees. In November, Prairie Friends and Flowers was not only our sponsor for our floral arrangement that they do every month, but also for our gift boxes that we gave to our employees. So cueing you guys. The district leadership and myself started out at the high school to recognize Mrs. Cheryl Hall. Mr. Spithiansky tells us that Cheryl goes above and beyond to make sure our classes are covered every single day. Her welcoming nature, organization, and commitment to students and staff is truly appreciated. On top of it all, she is now helping coach our inaugural season of girls wrestling. We are fortunate to have Cheryl on our team. So Cheryl, would you like to come up and just stand here for a moment? And then we traveled over to Washington Elementary and surprised Miss Haley Melton, who had heard from, we heard from Mrs. Harmony Wagner that she is also well prepared for every day and every lesson, which allows her to maximize her instruction time and minimize off-task behaviors. Haley has clear expectations for her students and holds them accountable for both their academics and their behavior. She knows their abilities and needs of her students and continually uses that data to guide groups and interventions. Haley is a team player, mentoring a new teacher and being a part of the ELA curriculum team. So, Ms. Milton. So let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
And that's all that I have to report.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get away that easy.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's pretty good so far. Thank you.
Beautiful. Smile, work it.
Thank you. Next up, we have two members of our board that this is their last meeting, Ivan Mitchell and Mark Nicholson. And Joanne is giving a little gift from board members. And then also you have a gift from the district there in the blue and gold wrapping paper. So if you want to open them, you may, or if you want to wait, I guess that's all your choice. But I do want to thank you both for your years of service on the board.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed working with both of you. I really did. All right, superintendent's report.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few items. On December 1st, Mr. Simpson and I attended kind of a coalition meeting, and it was put on by our North Platte Chamber in conjunction with the Nebraska State Chamber and the OTOC, which is the Omaha Together One Community Organization. We were the third group across the state to meet, and it really focused around workforce shortages in the state of Nebraska and in the areas of healthcare and agriculture, but certainly in the areas of education, we're experiencing a workforce shortage as well. So we had several speakers that spoke. One of those was
Brian Sloan, who actually is the director of the Nebraska Chamber at the state level. Once the introductions were over, we broke into smaller groups and we kind of shared some of our workforce dilemmas from each one of our areas here in North Platte. And then when we came out of that, we formed or signed up for 4 different smaller coalitions that will do some work together in January. And then in February, the big coalition will come back together. And I would imagine at some point, the state will pull the 4 or 5 larger coalitions that they put together. But we talked a lot about international recruiting, some of the things that you've heard Mr. Mills talk about in terms of teachers. We know the hospital has reached out and with some of their healthcare providers and are looking at that international route as well. Some of the shortcomings with that and some of the dilemmas with J1 visas and J2 visas and some of the issues that kind of uprise from what's happening at the federal level. So the 4 areas that we broke down into was state, federal, PR was another one, and then legislation. So we kind of signed up for these committees, these smaller coalitions. Again, we'll do some work in January, and then that group will come back together most likely in February. Strategic plan, our directors have been working on kind of the working draft of the strategic plan. So we'll have that mid-year report ready sometime after the first of the year. So we'll be able to provide our progress in terms of the strategic plan. I would tell you this, goal 3 is our teaching and learning goal. And if we look at, I suppose my computer shut down on me. If we look at the action, I believe it's 3.1.2. That's about professional development of our instructional leaders being our principals. So we did have 5 of our principals that attended the state conference last week. They actually had to stay in Lincoln because the weather didn't permit them to come home that evening. But we're very excited to hear the reports from them. They will share that with the rest of the ADCO and with the rest of their colleagues. But we really have that dedication and commitment to that professional development piece. You've heard me talk about that before. You've heard me talk about principals and how important it is for them to be instructional leaders as well. So we'll be excited. It'll be exciting to hear that report, and they will report at some point to our board. The last thing I would mention is Doane University is coming to North Platte. They are going to start Cadre 50. And that is a leadership cadre. It will take place at ESU 16. It's a 2-year program where teachers or certificated folks can start to work on their leadership certificate, that endorsement. So might be K6 administration, might be 712, but they'll meet as a cadre and they'll be together for 2 years. Really important for us. We've talked a lot about growing our own. And so this is an important step to get Doane out here in this part of the state. The other really neat thing about this is there'll be people sitting in this room that will be presenters to this cadre as well. So we're really excited to kind of take a leadership role in that cadre as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now board comments.
I'll go ahead and start as the outgoing board member, one of us. Just wanted to say how much I appreciate working with each of you. I've learned a lot from you. Very excited about the direction of the district, and having Dr. Rhodes here, I'm excited about what's happening and the direction that we're going. Talking before the meeting started, Angela's telling me about her daughter doing wrestling, and I think that's what we want to be. We want to be the best big school. We want to be something that's different out here and kind of an alternative to those other things that are out there. And the opportunities that we offer our students are great, and I hope that we continue to expand those. The community has a lot of growth coming, and I think that we're going to have to make it a good, easy place to move into our community and make it easy on parents and students. Excited about the recruitment efforts that are going on, and I've really just enjoyed my time on the board, and I think that we are headed in a very good direction. So that's all I have.
The only report I have is that I was able to attend on the mental health day that the high school had. I attended the speaker Tom Farley. And I was able to get there for most of his speech. And so that was interesting to see kind of the perspective he brought to our students. I was impressed, the students were engaged. It was a group of high school students. So every once in a while you'd see a couple here and there that might not be as engaged, but for the most part, I mean, I was really impressed. He had some student participation and kids were eager to get up on stage. And I thought he gave a great message. And he mentioned during his presentation that he was able to pop into a couple of the small groups throughout the day. And he was really impressed with what they were discussing. And so I think it was a great event. And I think Mrs. Busher's here, but congratulations to her and her staff for putting that on, because I think that's a great thing. And I hope it's something we continue to support as a district.
So I guess I'll report. I did not get to visit schools like I had intended this last month, just with going to the state board conference and new board member and holidays and all of that. But I do, I've been reaching out and started making some contacts for the first part of the year. So I did go to the state board conference and went to several sessions. I'm going to be meeting with Dr. Rhodes and talking with him about some things from the new board member workshop, as well as the state conference. Just some highlights. One of the sessions I went to, it's a smaller school, Exeter Milligan, and they do a senior seminar. And it was really interesting to hear how they ran their program. I've already talked to Dr. Rhodes a little bit about how I think there's some things we wouldn't want to run it exactly like they do. It's actually a class that you take as part of your day. And but I still think there's some things that could be learned from what they do. They teach some really interesting things. One of the things that they do, which I thought was kind of interesting, is they wrap their personal finance class that is required, the finance class that's required by the state. That's one of the ways that they get credit for that class, is that's wrapped into that. So the first part of the year they do life and career readiness, and then which is taught by their it's not called home ec anymore, but you know what I mean. So family and consumer science. And then the second part is taught by, I think, one of their business teachers. And then I went to a session on access to overall well-being with ESU2. And again, there's some really interesting things that I learned there, and need to make time to touch base with Mrs. Busher on some of those things. Went to a session on public comment with the attorneys, and then also another session that was on transgender student rights, and touched a little bit on just gender identity. Also talked a little bit in one of the sessions about book bans and just other recent issues that a lot of school boards are facing, and some of the legalities around some of that. So that was really interesting. And I really appreciated being able to spend time with our new board members, but also it was good to go to the new board member conference, just because they did things different than they used to 8 years ago when I first was a new board member. And so it was good to hear some of those presentations, and had the Nebraska Department of Ed there. So it was overall really good and a good learning experience. So.
Okay. Angela, anything?
Not really.
Other than your daughter's wrestling?
Other than Zara's wrestling. And
Yes.
I was very impressed with the high school, how they moved the wrestling meet from downtown on the bricks into the gymnasium. So short notice because of weather, and how it all went together was great. I'm very excited about the dean of students that we've been talking about, because this last month I've walked into schools just delivering to things, and the principals are always busy. And so it would be nice if they could, pop out and say, hey, every once in a while, but they're taking care of things that are going on. So very encouraged with this new idea.
All right. On November 16th through the 18th, I also attended the state conference in Omaha. Prior to that, the legislative committee that I am on met. And we met for 2 hours before the conference started, and the basic is we don't know a whole lot until the bills are going to be introduced in January. There's an idea what bills will be introduced and by whom they are, but so many new legislators, 17 of them, that some of the bills that they will introduce that will affect us, whether it's through Education Committee, Revenue Committee, Finance Committee, any of those will affect us. I also went to numerous workshops, everything from teacher shortage, which Kevin and Stuart were there as well with me on that one, to different ones that were presented by the KSB, our school attorneys, on things that are going on in schools. And it's always good to be able to talk to other school board members from specifically Kearney, Grand Island, places that are our size relatively, who have the same issues that we face, and talk to them. On December 5th, I visited McDonald Elementary. It was a nice day comparatively to what it is now. Always good to tour the buildings and see students working. And then, I was in education a long time, but it changed so much. Walk into any of those rooms and they're on their computers and the smart board in front and working in groups and so forth. I always find that so not amazing in a sense, but how engaged the students and teachers are. I haven't been into a building in any of my tours that does not happen. And I think that it's wonderful. Talked with Principal Flanders, went into the PE classes where they were rolling volleyballs into hula hoops. They had sat on the ground to try to keep the ball inside the hula hoop. And if you think about that, probably not the easiest thing I could do, but I thought that was interesting. And I also went in, the art class was working and they were drawing Christmas pictures. And several of the kids wanted to show me what they had drawn that they were going to be able to take home in a few days, but it's always fun. Then on December 5th, same day, I attended the Madison Band Choir Orchestra concert. And I was amazed, specifically more with band and orchestra, that these students who just started playing those instruments in August could actually play them and with the songs. And the place was packed, of course, with the parents, us grandparents, all of us that were there. And I really was amazed at how far they have taken them with the band and the orchestra. Just amazing. And then on December 6th, I also attended the new member workshop. And Emily is here tonight, and she is actually, when I'm done, then we will have her talk about what she learned there. It's always good to what Joanne said about reviewing, because we have a tendency to forget some things. They did a pretty good extensive into the Opens Meeting Act, which is what guides us for what we do, going back over what our duties of board members are, what our duties are not, stay in your lane and that type of things. And it was an excellent reminder to what goes on in those things. And I thought it was really, really good.
Emily, before you start, there's one thing I wanted to mention just off of the technology piece. That's one thing that I'm loving that we're getting a lot more of. And I don't know if this is a post-COVID thing, but I was able to watch the kids compete with their one act at state from the comfort of my home.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're doing a lot more with technology in the district too. So it's really great that we have those opportunities to just support the kids, whether we travel or we're home.
That's true. Yeah.
Did Emily know she would be asked to speak?
I asked Emily and she agreed
Okay,
to it.
good.
Yeah. I did not put her on the spot.
there was consent.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
there was a consent there.
Wanted to clarify.
So go ahead, Emily.
Okay, well, thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to share and to the district for the opportunity to go attend these conferences because they really were very beneficial. The first one, that one in November, the state school board convention was like jumping right on in there. And so I was able to attend a variety of sessions. I attended some for new board members. I attended some just for, current issues that our students might be facing in our school. And they were all very nice. There was also a session or a period in the morning where we could meet with board members from other schools that, had been board members for a little bit longer than my non-existent tenure so far. And so that was just nice to be able to, kind of bounce ideas and ask questions and hear from people in other districts. And so that brought a unique perspective to that. And so I just really appreciated that. And then, of course, bouncing off of attending some new board member sessions there, I then attended the new board member session on December 6th, as well as Skip and Joanne and Cindy was there. And that was a full day of policy, it felt like mostly, which I guess is a good thing that I walked away from that thinking I actually really like policy. So I walked away actually feeling very excited about what we can do as a board with policy and the impact that that has on our community. I learned a lot that day and discovered a new passion for policy, apparently. So I have since read all of our policies. So, and then I am looking forward to also attending the legislative conference in Lincoln in January. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Sure.
Okay, our committee reports on December 6th, meeting of the Personnel, American Civic Curriculum, Student Services and Communication Subcommittee. Mark.
Yes, attending were Angela Blazy, myself, Skip Altig, Amber Garza, Brandy Busher, Vicki Carlson, Lindsay Douglas, Kevin Mills, Stuart Simpson, and Todd Rhodes. And we started the meeting at 7 a.m. for some reason. We opened up with the purpose and direction statement, which Skip read to begin the meeting, and I won't repeat because I don't read it as well. Amber Garza gave us a nice presentation on the Boys Town intervention system that she'll be giving another presentation on again tonight. Vicki Carlson and Lindsay Douglas walked us through the AQuest results and the effects that have been had because of the pandemic and how some of the testing is a little off right now at the moment. Kevin Mills gave us a staffing update as he does pretty much every month. Stuart brought in the administrative salaries per NPPS policy 1010, starting the process of reviewing and setting administrative salaries. We talked briefly about the Dean of Students, which we'll have an action item on later this evening. Dr. Rose went over resignations and letters that are now attached to our agendas, and we adjourned at 7:55.
And on December 8th, 2022, meeting of the Finance, Facilities, Operation and Legislation Subcommittee. Ivan.
Yes, we had Stuart Simpson, Joanne Lundgren, myself, Todd Rhodes, and Lindsay Douglas there and present. The meeting began at 7:34. We did meet at Eisenhower Elementary, and we had the chance to tour. We've been going to different facilities, mainly looking at their building needs. Essentially HVAC and windows were what we were focused on in the learning environment there at Eisenhower. Lindsay talked about the AQuest test results, and those were really interesting. Those have been released to by the Nebraska Department of Education. And it was interesting to see as we've had a couple of odd years of education. So we were able to kind of compare those to the pre-pandemic scores that we had. One of the important things we do as a board is look at administrator salaries. So we reviewed policy 1010, the process for reviewing that and how that works into our cycle for the year. We did discuss the ESSERS funds, which is essentially the COVID relief funds that are given to education, and went over, we're currently in ESSERS round 2 and 3, and identified the remaining funds and talked about what we'll be utilizing those for. And then, of course, went over our building fund and prioritization, essentially looking at the current projects and projects we'll be doing in the future. We discussed the cash reserves of the organization. They must be below 25%. Looked at the 4-year trend that we've had, and we've done pretty well at being close to that cash reserves cap of 25%. And then we went over state aid, and we did on December 1st, we received confirmation of the state aid components. There was a 7% property valuation increase in our county, and that's reflected in the state aid calculation. And then we went over the audit and the audit costs. We've been using Dana F. Cole as the company that we've been using for years, and evaluated their fees compared to others, and seem to be happy with their services, and think we'll continue in that direction. And that is all that I have. I do not have a time that we, oh, no, I got some more, sorry. We've been talking with the city and looking at the Cody Park tennis courts. I know there's been a lot of work to kind of upgrade those and maintain those, and a discussion of utilizing those in conjunction with the school district to make sure that we have tennis courts that are maintained and are good to practice on for the future. We did talk about the interlocal agreement for the rec center. That's been talked about in the public quite a bit, and it makes sense just to utilize the city's pool for meets and tournaments and practice rather than trying to have a separate pool at the school. So that interlocal agreement will need to be in place. Superintendent Rhodes talked to us about the Dean of Students proposal that we talked about last month, asked if there were any additional questions, and we talked about that, and also discussed resignations. Those letters are available to us to look at, and we adjourned at 9 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval by the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda have gone through board subcommittee review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of a board member. Part of this is the approval of financial claims and reports, and Matt and myself were the two this month that went through those. And Janelle was able to answer my question that I had this morning.
And I answered Matt.
Stuart won for the battle, so
Yeah.
I would move to accept or approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. The roll call.
Matthew Peterson,
Aye.
Skip Altick,
Abstain.
Joanne Lynn Green,
Abstain.
Ivan Mitchell,
Aye.
Angela Blazy,
Aye.
Mark Nicholson.
Hi.
It is approved. All right, report and discussion items, Boys Town Intervention Program. Amber, I see you.
It's not one.
All right, well, thank you all for having me here. She's gonna get my PowerPoint up here real quick, but yeah, I'm glad to be here. Come and talk to you all about what I've been doing at Adams Middle School. So my name is Amber Garza. I'm the school support specialist at Adams Middle School with Boys Town. It is a brand new role. So where we are at on the next slide there is it's grown even from the slideshow. We are in Nebraska, we are in Nevada, New England, DC, and South Florida. And then how we do it. You're good, Sheila. That's good.
Sorry.
No, you're good. It's just kind of showing an overview. We have in-home services with, and then working with the parents in the home to strengthen social skills and parenting skills, and then care coordination. If it's food, shelter, clothes, whatever they're needing. And then partnering with community services also, whether it's health, legal, basic needs. Then parent education. We have what's called common sense parenting classes that Boys Town does. And then the well-managed schools has already come to North Platte and been training, and then they'll work with training superintendents and administration. And this really is about helping with alternative ways to help students other than suspensions. And so how I work with them one-on-one is really important. And one of the outcomes on the next slide there is that in an elementary school in Las Vegas, Nevada, where it's been really big and got going as school support specialist, is student attendance went up 700 days. And then suspensions went down 56% after the program was implemented. So this is really when it's showing like it's gotten to a point where it's working. And the biggest thing to know is it really does take time. But what I've been doing, a Boys Town report on the next slide shows that since I've started working at the school in August, I have worked one-on-one with students. There's been 181 events with students, and one-on-one, I will work with a student in my classroom, or if I use the library or something like that, for around 10 minutes average. Sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's less. And then classroom mini lessons is when I go into a classroom after I've talked to a teacher about, maybe they reach out to me, my class really needs to work on listening, or my class needs to work on following instructions. So I'll go in and talk for about 15 minutes. I've done 17 of those. Event tracker really is if I've done like any kind of event, if I go to a program, and we've had parent teacher conferences. So I've had 3 of those. Incident reports is anything that if there's like suicidal ideation or anything that's aggression, I have to document anything like that. So there's been 7. Classroom observations, I'll go into a classroom and observe the student and they don't know that I'm observing them. And I've done 16. And then parent contact, it's really important for me to talk with parents, whether it be over the phone, email, text, and I've done 91. And then social skills groups, I work with groups of kids and I try to really narrow down a good group. And I've worked with the counselors. I've worked with student services. Grace Fletcher has been really helpful on like, does this set of kids mesh okay? Like sometimes they're not always, but I tried my best so that it doesn't cause more friction. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to come and work with me, but I try to make it the best. Like I talk to the students individually if I can before I say, okay, we're going to do this group, and I explain who I am and what I do. And the biggest thing is like, you're not in trouble just because it's Boys Town. Maybe the kids think, oh, I'm in trouble. And I'm like, I'm here to help. It's a service and we are here to help you grow with social skills and, behaviors. And sometimes it's maybe something you don't know. So that's why I'm there. So in those groups, there can be 4 to 8 kids. On average, there's usually 4 to 6, and I've done 11 groups so far. And then, so total, there's been 237 different incidences that I did from this documentation and pulled it. And on average, I do on a week around 19, 20, it just depends. And then the one other shows that there was 81 in November. So just kind of about the numbers on the next slide, I compared kind of an average to Nevada that has been doing this for a while, since this is fairly new. And I was pleased to know like their minimum benchmark per month is 60 rendered services a month. And my monthly at Adams in November was 81. So again, it can vary. And right now I'm working with about 6 students one-on-one on a regular basis. There's a couple that I've kind of started to work with, but not necessarily full force yet. And then I have a social skills group of 5. And then, so the next slide just kind of goes over how it's going, positive, negatives, or not really negatives, just kind of some challenges. But positives, I have had really great support since I started. This is all new to everybody, not just me, the school, Boys Town, Central Nebraska. And I've had great support from the school, from staff. It's been great. It takes time. Joanne from National Boys Training came and just really expressed that she worked with a school and it's been 5 years now. And she's like, I'm really starting to really see progress. So just knowing that, she came and observed, and just a couple of numbers, preventative prompts in the classroom when she observed, there were 43. Academic praise is huge with Boys Town. There were 72 times that praise was used throughout. So just a couple little things about that. And building relationships with staff, students, and parents has been huge. with everything being new, there was a little bit of confusion with like how the grant works. But everybody's been really understanding on guidelines. And there was a comment about that was slipped into my mailbox that said, "We greatly appreciate you. We are so happy to have you as part of our team. Your positive attitude and calm presence have a huge impact at our school." And that was really good to hear, good feedback. And a student told another student when I went to get someone in passing, "That's Miss Garza. She's my Boys Town teacher and she's really nice." So just to hear that from student to student, peer to peer, it was really good. And yeah, I just thank everybody for the opportunity to have me speak and have Boys Town as part of North Platte Public Schools. And if anybody has any questions, that's all I have. I appreciate it.
So how do, obviously there's some school services, but then it sounds like there's some in-home services as well. How do those referrals come about and kind of how's that work?
So the in-home services is, I mean, I don't work in the in-home services, but my supervisor as of right now, Jamie, is the in-home services supervisor. So we'll work together and talk. And like, if there is something concerning that maybe after I'm talking to the parent, I have like a set of questions that I can ask them. And if they're interested in in-home services, then I can let them know that they could call and see about a referral and give them the information about in-home services.
Okay, so it's not necessarily associated with your program, but there might be some overlap and then you can kind of make a
Yes.
referral.
Yes. Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you for all you're doing.
Yes.
Really.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Staffing update, Mr. Mills.
Good evening. President Altig, Superintendent Rhodes, Board of Education. I'd like to thank Ivan and Mark for your service, but it's been a joy getting to know both of you gentlemen. And I know if I need a history teacher, I know where to go. We talked about this. We can make it happen. Also want to thank new school board member Emily Garrett, news music to my ears to hear that you read every policy. That is outstanding. Love that. And also want to thank Dr. Rhodes and the board for inviting me to the state conference as well. It's my first time there. It was nice to be with board members and administration and go through that process. It was a very awesome conference. So thank you for that. Update, just talked to Kyle. We opened up our kindergarten and PK registrations and we have 36 new registrations for 23-24. So that's blowing up. Out of control. Hang on. We're wrapping up our international recruiting that we've talked about for several months. We've held 16, 17 different interviews, obviously all Zoom, all scheduled either early morning or late afternoon for their times as well. I've now given the list to the principals to kind of go back over and give me some feedback of those individuals that we'd like to move forward with Teach USA. So we've talked about this over and over with the board, with the cabinet. We're getting down to selecting some individuals. So getting really close on that, hopefully this week. Any questions on international variety?
Mr. Mills, do you want to kind of talk a little more about that process?
Sure.
Once you get the feedback from the principal,
Sure.
how you'll work with that organization?
Yep. Since it's again, as you all know, a new process for us, I've been working closely with the coordinator of the program, Teach USA out of New Mexico, and talked to her over this weekend. I came in and did some things. What our next step is once we find the individuals we want, we'll make that list and we'll give that list to Teach USA, and then I will contact the candidates as well. I get 3 emails a day, probably from all these candidates. Where are you at in the process? Where are you at? Very, very anxious to know. And then what will happen? They will all be put into the window for the J1 visa, January 1st. That's when that opens up. And so then that process will begin. And then what's great about the agency, and Dr. Rhodes could maybe speak to this as well, they walk them through all those different processes. So our part is here's who we want, these individuals, and then they'll walk them through those next steps. And some of the things we've talked about that we've learned from other school districts is the turnaround time is pretty tight in the summer. So we would like to offer to bring them here earlier so we can spend some time with teaching and learning and going through our protocols and our policies and everything that is different in the United States, obviously to North Platte Public School District. So we'd like to come here early, maybe do some stipends to help them and really be a process for everything that's new to them, not only a country, but the school district itself. As far as teaching, when I looked them over and Corey mentioned, we were talking a little bit before the meeting too. I would say to this group, to the board and superintendent, the individuals we are recruiting are high proficient teachers, all with master's degrees plus, 7, 8, up to 26 years of teaching. So all very, very experienced teachers. So again, probably more to come on that process once we make that list. And then I'll report back of what I've learned from it.
And what areas of teaching are we looking? Are they elementary? Is it across?
Great question.
the
We're
board?
looking at elementary, and then for science, social studies, English, all of our cores for the high school. And maybe one middle school social studies. So every core, science, English, science and social studies. And then elementary.
Any other questions for Kevin?
If you're really desperate for a history teacher, because I like you. You gotta be real
Thanks,
desperate.
Mark. In other staffing news, we're wrapping up our administrative assistant interviews at Madison Middle School. Sarah there is leaving at the end of January and been very kind to us to stay until January 27th. So Robin and I got right on the application process, and we've been interviewed last week and we're finishing up today because we know we have a time with the holidays for that individual to leave their present job, give plenty of notice to their position, and then start with us on January 5th. That way that individual can sit with Sarah at Madison and walk through those daily processes for a good solid 3 weeks. So they'll be employed, but they won't officially take over that role till January 30th. So we're really excited about that. We've had some great interviews. I advertise this on, is that me? Yep. Okay. We advertised, and between our website and Indeed, we have had over 60 applications for administrative assistant. So that we looked at a lot of people. Now, obviously, a lot of people aren't qualified, so I screened those all out and brought 4 or 5 individuals to Madison so they could see the building and sit with Sarah out there as Rob and I sat in the back room. Then we brought him in and walked through the interview process. So we'll finish that up tomorrow. Any questions on administrative assistant? Last 2 things, we have one interview set up. I was sharing with President Altig earlier this afternoon. We have a interview set up for middle school because we do have some openings there. We have 5 openings. If you guys will remember, we have a candidate that I met at UNK this last fall and reached out, and she finally accepted an interview. As I was sharing with the gentleman, I don't necessarily have a math job for her, but we have a job for her. So we're bringing her in at semester, and we're very excited because if you remember, our music person 6 through 12 starts January 5th. So that's our second hire. So our first hire, if you'll remember, was our student teacher at Eisenhower. So that'll be our first, and our second hire to jobs that we're not filling, but to other jobs as well. So we're very excited about the music and bringing in that second grade teacher. We also have interviews set up for our EDN, which is our early network that the individuals go out to the homes. And we have a person that's leaving that position in January. So Erica Johnson and I and several others have interviews set up for that process. And then I'll be reaching out for counseling as well, have an application for that to get that set up. I think that covers it. Questions?
No question. It just, as you see, you are hiring all year.
Yes.
Not just in the
It's
spring.
changed, hasn't it? Yeah. Year round.
And are we correct that we had a lower number of folks that submitted resignations due to retirement by December 1st?
Right.
Than we've had in past years? Is that a
That's
correct
sir.
statement?
Yep. We've had
And
lower number.
so
Yep.
one of the things that the cabinet talked about is that, for whatever reason, now it could be the where the longevity of our teaching staff is. So that certainly can be part of it. But we have that cutoff of December 1st, if you're going to take advantage of the retirement program that the district offers. And
Yeah.
And we just did not have a lot of those come in.
Yeah, only had two retirements and 3 resignations. I think that's correct. Stuart's double checking my work.
Just double check it.
Double checking my work. I think we had 2 resign. So that's very good news. And the other thing, I want to give a huge shout out to all the principals and directors too, because right now with recruiting, I'm talking to different staff members, going out to a lot of our buildings, talking to all the principals. So we're talking about, are you hearing anybody that might be looking or leaving? So and I thank everybody, because we're all in this together to recruit, and for the teachers as well that are reaching out. I've had several staff that have emailed me and said this, that, and the other. I reached out last night to Wayne State College. I found out a former coworker of mine from Omaha Public Schools. She's actually teaching in the counseling department at Wayne State. So I reached out to her and said, we need some counseling. She said, send me the information. So it's a network that all of us have to be involved with. But so we might thank the principals for all their work in this process, because it's definitely not one of us doing the whole job.
We had 3 early retirements
Right.
compared to about normally 10 in the past.
Yeah.
Pretty significant.
Significant.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
Right.
Monthly financial and budget report, Mr. Simpson.
I'll wait for Sheila to bring it up on the screen here.
I don't know if Sheila's gonna want another PowerPoint. I saw it after that last one, and she.
Must be static. I moved my hands and it swayed through the.
So on the first 2 pages, Dr. Rhodes had mentioned that the cabinet is updating the strategic plan that we brought forward in January. And always on my monthly financial report, as well as my budget document for financial discussion, I always give you at least the main goals that we have on the strategic plan, so you can know that no matter what, as you look at the financial report, we try to tie that back into each of the goals that we have, or at least the financial goals that we have too. So one or the other is going forward. If you want to go to page 9, Sheila, which is our standard cash flow chart. It'll say monthly cash flow. Yes, it looks like a little bit dip in comparison to the previous 4 years that we had. In that couple of items, number one, we've had some additional expenditures in equipment this past 3 months. Second of all, I transferred the money to the activity fund. Normally I wait till May, but with our new activity director, I wanted to sort of start the process with Jimmy early and just sort of set it up to where he has the money. Now, how are we going to control the expenditures, or what are we going to do in the activity program? So I'm actually meeting with him on a monthly basis to go over our activity programs and make sure everything is alignment as we go forward into the winter season and then the spring season. Along with that, though, I also want to tell you too, ESSER's 3 grant, we have about over 300,000 that I've submitted. We're sitting on, waiting for money to come in. And then another 200,000 as ESSER's 2 that are supposed to be coming in. So we always know, no matter what on our grants, we have additional dollars always sitting out there waiting to come in. The revenue does not align with the expenditures because of the state and the turnaround. Now, in the past, we've had about a 30-day turnaround. We're going to wait and see what happens this year. I'm going to just hold for the positive that we'll get a 30-day turnaround and be okay there. I haven't mentioned ESSERS, and we talk about that all the time, whether it's at our finance committee, at cabinet, or any other place that I get a forum. And in that, we need to remind, and working with Tina, we have it on our website. Every 6 months, we're required to have out on our website
the ESSERS 3 document that people can submit comments or suggestions to us about how we're expending the ESSERS dollars. And really, our focus and direction on that has not changed, even with the discussion that we've had with our Dean of Students, and what we've put in there in the past has really not changed our focus on what we want to do with instruction or HVAC within the district. But still, it's our requirement through September 30th of 2023. We have to have it out there for people to review and look at. And then at that point, we have 1 year left to expend our ESSER $3. And we'll be concluding that year from September. So that's ESSERS in a nutshell. If you want to go to, and I didn't put the page number on there, Sheila, if you want to go to page 6. I just want to remind the board, this is sort of a Stewart schedule, but it does a couple of things. Number one, helps identify when we talk about, as Ivan referenced, cash reserves, the general fund depreciation employee benefit fund falls within that total 25% cash reserves. But second of all, if you look down on the far third column from the right, sort of identifies our cash that we have in the district. And just to remind you, we've consolidated our cash into one financial institution. So whether or not we have funds in the general fund, we sort of take it all and consolidate it and then expend it according to the fund allocation. We always know, as we see on the monthly cash flow, how, especially in the general fund, how it comes back once we get property taxes in April and May and then August. So, and then finally, page 15 and 16, Sheila, it's the 2 graphs. There we go. The first one, it's just really quick, just pointed out to you. When you look at what we're expending our dollars on, not including grants, 80% of our budget is allocated towards salary and fringe benefits accordingly. And then on the next one, one that she brought up, this sort of identifies our expenditures by discipline, whether it's instruction or special ed. And I know there's multiple times as Skip and I and Dr. Rhodes deals with legislation, people try to identify how much are we spending in the classroom. And I can say all the time as I look at this every month, right now we are spending at least 68% of those, whether it's regular instruction or special ed, in the classroom, directly affecting students. So I just want to point that out to you. That's it.
Any questions for Stewart? I want to make a comment that one of the things that they covered last week in the new member workshop was how boards should have a monthly financial that they discuss at their meetings, and pie charts and your graphs that you have. They used examples, exactly what you use. So I thought that was really good that we do that. And they talked about how some boards do not do that. So
I guess I hope I give as much information, and we'll be going over it as the new board changes next year, the reports that we need, because I always want to make sure that if there's something new that you would like to look at, please let me know.
But yeah,
thank you, Scott.
Okay, legislative update, Stewart.
I'll just mention a few things, and then I know Skip has a couple of items, but Emily mentioned the State School Board Legislative Conference, which is at the end of January, but along with that, I'll be attending an NCSA. I'm on their legislative group, like Skip is on the school boards, and they'll be holding theirs right after the school boards one. And then just a reminder, if any board member would like to attend a GNSA meeting, it's on the 25th of January, where we meet, discuss, and then meet with our senators. So that's an option. But I know the new legislature starts January 4th. And we've heard, a couple of names being thrown out for the education chair. I'm not sure about revenue and speaker, but obviously those are always big issues that we're trying to watch. And then in the process, I want to say article in the Telegraph in regards to secret ballots, but that's going to be another issue that we're going to be watching as it moves forward.
Yeah, again, as I stated earlier in the meeting, there isn't going to be a whole lot that we can discuss until the bills are introduced starting on the 4th. My legislative committee, my next meeting will be at 11 a.m. on January 22nd. That's the day of the conference. We meet like all afternoon before the evening gets started. So I just found that out. Actually, today we'll start 11. We have been starting at 1, so that tells me they expect a lot more to discuss. But again, by the January meeting, we'll know a lot more about bills introduced, chairs of committees, and the direction that we feel that the legislature might be going.
I think there's probably a better than good chance that Senator Merman will be the chair of the Education Committee. So we'll keep our eyes on that. There's an outside chance that, we might be able to get Lynn Walls might still be on that Education Committee, which would be very atypical. Generally, if you run for committee chair, you're not placed on that committee if you don't win that seat. So if you've paid any attention, there was a little consternation about across the aisles and that number 33. And so there were some pretty tightly contested races on the eastern side of the state. We ended up at 32-17. The reason that's good for education is the filibuster will still be in play, most likely. You need 33 votes for cloture, which is that cloture vote is to end debate and move that topic forward for vote. So that's really been good in the world of education the past many years is that we've had debate go on and on through filibuster and some legislation that may have hurt schools was what never made it to the vote because it never reached that point. So that is positive. And I'm kind of like Mr. Simpson and Skip. The legislature is pretty dear to my heart, and I like paying pretty close attention to what happens in Lincoln. So we'll keep our eyes on that as we move forward. So
Was today the governor-elect's, isn't his committee on school funding, didn't they meet today for the first time or something?
Well, we really haven't received a lot of information on that. I think there was some disappointment from some of rural Nebraska that however that committee was put together or chosen, there were areas of rural Nebraska that weren't a part of that. So in fact, there were some organizations that were listed, but not actual superintendents. So we're kind of curious as to who was representing those groups. So we'll just kind of wait and hear. You probably have heard, initially there was this foundation aid that the governor-elect was saying 3,200, 3,400 for each student. And so I think there probably are some ramifications from your metros that those senators aren't going to vote for that because that's going to take money away from Omaha and the metro and Lincoln, and it's going to shift it out in the world of ag. So there's got to be that it's got to come together with you need a different pot of state funding if you're going to do that, and because your senators from Lincoln and Omaha are just they're not going to let that happen. So I think today was that first meeting, but we haven't received any correspondence on how that went.
All right. Public comment. Public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with the date, topic addressing, name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting.
I have none.
All right, we won't read the rest of it. That moves us to our one action item, request approval to add Dean of Students position to selected schools. Dr. Rhodes.
So we have talked about this, I think, going all the way back to just an initial conversation in subcommittee meetings. And so we've had, almost 3 months of dialogue on this. Policy 1013 gives the board discretion to authorize the position of Dean of Students. And so we do have that in policy. We've talked about the financial implications of deans of students. Mr. Simpson, as he talked about ESSERS a little bit earlier, we've kind of made that decision. If this is a direction the board wants to go, that for that 23-24 school year, we would be paying Dean of Students out of ESSERS 3. And then, of course, we would go back and we would look at our situation as we enter 24-25 and upcoming school years. You'll notice that the action item doesn't call for a number of Dean of Students, and it doesn't call for specific buildings where those deans will be placed. I think it's always important that we have some administrative discretion based on the need and the financial situation of the district. So we're not locked into a certain number if we can't afford it, or if conditions change and we might need a dean at a different building than initially decided. So we've had deans in our district when I was in the district, both at Adams and at the high school. We had deans of students at that time. So we've talked a lot about our principals being instructional leaders. We've talked about changing the conditions in classrooms for our kids, and we really need that instructional support, the instructional guidance from our building principals, and in their daily lives. Sometimes that what you think would be a priority, unfortunately, isn't, because they have to tend to other matters that can be student necessities. So with that, I would just, any questions that you have for myself or other of the directors, we'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? And you can ask questions here at this time if you wish as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note, Dr. Rhodes noted this, but this is not first time we're discussing this topic. We've talked about it quite a bit in subcommittee meetings. We had a very thorough presentation in both subcommittee meetings and then last month as well. I am fully in support of this proposal. I think obviously the potential concerns we have is, as we mentioned, funding one, and then two, just being able to not necessarily fill the dean of students positions, but those people that might take those positions, the teachers. So that's obviously a concern, but I know that Kevin has shown us that he's not afraid of a challenge and is willing to step up to make sure we have quality teachers, if they may, be promoted to those positions. But as far as the benefits to the district, I think it obviously outweighs any potential concerns I have. We've heard from Mrs. Busher about the behaviors that we're seeing in our district and the concerns that those bring to our schools, and the problems that creates for our principals then when they're dealing with that, rather than, as Dr. Rhodes said, being in the classrooms and being those instructional leaders. So I think it's only going to bring good to our district, and hopefully we'll see a benefit. I'm sure it won't be right away, but I know down the road we'll be able to look at the numbers that Mrs. Busher presented us and see those decreasing. And so I'm definitely in support of this proposal.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few principals and a lot of teachers who are all excited with the idea of having this. So it's fantastic.
I agree. I worked under worked with, I should say, dean of students. They didn't do any evaluations or anything, but at the time, I thought they were really helped the district and allows principals, associate principals to actually do what they're supposed to be there to do, which is to help lead teachers to become better teachers. And I think since we have a funding that we can get here for next year to do this and see how it works, But again, we've had a lot of issues, as we know, and what we've been talking about since the COVID issues, that we have a lot of discipline issues in our schools from pre-K all the way up to the high school, that we really need to have somebody that can deal with those to allow our principals to do their specific job. So I'm totally in favor of this. Anybody else? All right,
Could we go back and I didn't hear who moved and who seconded?
Angela moved
Okay,
I seconded.
and Joanne.
now I'm ready.
Okay, roll call, Sheila.
Skip Altick,
Aye.
Joanne Lingreen.
Aye.
Ivan Mitchell,
Aye.
Angela Blazy,
Hi.
Mark Nicholson,
Hi.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
It passes. That is all of our action items for this evening. Just one last reminder, the legislative conference, January 22nd and 23rd. If you plan to attend, you need to let Sheila know. I know Emily has already mentioned she is going. I will be attending, and generally Stuart and Dr. Rhodes attend, but any of the rest of you, that Monday, actually state senators come and speak to us for about 5 minutes or so, and they do a nice rotation of it. And that Monday morning that's all it is. And that's really very good. So with that,
I would move to adjourn at 6:46.
I second.
moved and seconded. Roll call, Sheila.
Joanne Lingreen,
Aye.
Ivan Mitchell,
Aye.
Angela Blazy,
Hi.
Mark Nicholson,
Hi.
Matthew Peterson,
Aye.
Skip Altick.
Aye, we are adjourned.
They'll still, they just come and lie to you for 5 minutes. Yeah,
Oh,
that's what happens.
okay.
Yeah, they